Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. All right, so the Browns have just hired Tommy Rees to be the offensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns. This is not a surprise if you've been watching this channel. I talked about this as early as when Kevin handed over the play calling responsibilities to Ken Dorsey, that if they were to fire Dorsey, I felt like Tommy Rees would likely be who they promote. Tommy Rees, super young, former quarterback for Notre Dame, was the offensive coordinator for Notre Dame's football team for a couple of years, and then 1 year at Alabama. So this is a really young coach, right? I know people are going to look back at what he did at Notre Dame and what he did at Alabama. I think the idea here for Tommy Rees is to take a job where he can get better, right? He's not going to be asked to carry the full load of being an offensive coordinator for the first time in the NFL, which would be the case if he went somewhere like New England, where they're going to ask him to kind of be the guy there, right? The play caller, carry the whole offense. In Cleveland, it's a little bit of a different job. Kevin Stefanski is going to be in charge of the offense. You're going to be in charge of what Kevin delegates to you on the offensive staff. What I like about this hire, Tommy Rees is a former player. I'm always interested in getting former players in on staffs like the Cleveland Browns. The Browns have a staff that, even though Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski did play college ball in the Ivy Leagues, they were never professional football players. So you want to make sure that you get input from dudes who've actually played in the league. Now, to be fair, Tommy Rees does not have an extensive NFL resume for what I remember. Let me look it up right now, but I don't think he was in the league more than a year. He wasn't like an amazing quarterback at Notre Dame, but yeah, he was in the league for 1 year, 2014. He played for Washington, went undrafted, and then most of his experience is with the college football ranks outside of his year in Cleveland as a passing game specialist and with San Diego. I think this hire is also interesting because the Browns clearly saw something that they liked in Tommy Rees while working with him during the course of the season. This is somebody they felt like had a personality they feel like they can work with, brought some new ideas to the table that they feel like are good. And that's going to be the main thing, right? Can Tommy Rees help innovate some of the stuff that Stefanski wants to do? I talked about it in my video earlier about offensive coordinators. I'm not going to get too hung up on names. I kind of want people who have things that they can bring to the table. And Tommy Rees has some things he can bring to the table, his experience in the college ranks. It does seem like the Browns are trying really hard to get something from the college ranks here, right? I think they're trying to predict where the game's going or get ahead of the curve offensively. And I think part of that strategy is to kind of pluck from the college ranks, which moves a little bit faster when it comes to offensive progression than the pros usually do, because they have a offensive or a former college guy, and Tommy Rees is the offensive coordinator. Another guy is their run game coordinator. That's another college guy. And then their offensive line coach is a former college head coach. So there's something there that they're trying to find, or maybe they feel like it's a market inefficiency in college where so many coaches are looking to head out because of NIL, that they're just finding better candidates in the college pool than in the NFL pool. But it feels intentional, them going with these guys who have a ton of experience in college, going with these younger guys. I think it has a lot to do because it's kind of concentrated on the offensive side. You're not seeing this on the defensive side. I think this has a lot to do with the Browns wanting to be better at getting ahead of the curve, right? They saw guys who run the same offense get ahead of them, like Kevin O'Connell and Matt LaFleur, and then Sean McVay. Like, they're seeing these guys kind of advance these offenses and getting ahead of the curve on them, and the Browns feel like they're running more of a throwback offense. I think these moves, digging into college as much as they have for some of these coordinator hires, is about trying to get ahead of the curve. So Tommy Rees is another step in that direction. If you're asking me how I feel about this hire, I don't dislike the hire. I'm not in love with the hire simply because I don't know enough about Tommy Rees, but spoiler warning, there's literally nobody they could hire that I would have been in love with, because you're pulling from a less experienced crop of coordinators. There's not enough experience, not enough stuff out there on anybody's resume where I'm going to be like blown away by whoever you hire or think something's a home run hire. I think this is a position under Kevin Stefanski, right? Kevin's going to run the offense. It seems clear as day that the Browns made this decision to move back to what they want to work with earlier in the season than maybe we anticipated, because like all of these moves feel like they were made in October. But yeah, the Browns are going with Tommy Rees as their offensive coordinator. I do think this role will be not like an insignificant one, but it will be a role that is second to what the Browns are doing with Kevin Stefanski. So Kevin's going to steer the ship, but I think Tommy Rees is going to have a significant hand in being able to choose the direction in which they choose to steer that ship. And it's worth noting, Tommy Rees, he's highly recommended. Like, a lot of people like him. Mike Vrabel, who has had some good offensive coordinator hires, really liked him. The same thing goes for Bill Belichick or somebody, because he was the guy in line to get the job at North Carolina if it weren't for Bill Belichick taking that job. So something about Tommy Rees from people who interact with him, they like, which I think is a good thing, right? Browns had him on campus for a year. They like him. These teams want to hire him to be a head coach. That's good. Mike Vrabel spent a year with him. He liked him enough to want to take him to New England with him. So all of those things ring out as good as you can with a hire like this. So I like it. The role, the fit for Tommy Rees, I think is interesting, because I think people are going to look at a lot of what he did at Alabama and Notre Dame and think he's trying to integrate that with what the Browns are doing. I think there's a chance that maybe he's trying to learn this Kubiak style and trying to kind of become more of a Kubiak tree guy than he's trying to bring over stuff that he did at Alabama. Like, I think if he thought that his offensive philosophy and his playbook was so good, he would have probably taken a job where he gets to be the play caller. I don't think that's going to be the case here in Cleveland. And maybe it might be the case. Maybe Kevin gave Ken Dorsey the book to show that he's willing to share the book and the play calling responsibilities. Maybe that's why he did that. Maybe it was because he just wanted Ken to go out on his own sword. There's a lot of different ways you can interpret that. But yeah, I think Tommy is using this opportunity to learn under Kevin, right? Like, I think he took this job because he wanted to learn under somebody who has a good reputation as an offensive head coach, and expand his knowledge underneath that tree. So I expect them to do what works in Kevin's wheelhouse. I think Tommy Rees is going to be expected to think outside the box a little bit, add some new elements to this team offensively, and do all of that. Now, there's a big elephant in the room when it comes to Tommy Rees, because he does have a history as an offensive coordinator. And that question is, will Tommy Rees be a fan of Jalen Milroe? Now, I don't want to make guarantees either way, right? There might be a chance that Tommy Rees loved his experience with Jalen Milroe. There might be a chance that Jalen Milroe and Tommy Rees did not get along greatly, right? I know with Jalen Milroe and Bill O'Brien, there was not a great relationship there, but I assume it was much better with Tommy Rees, because there's nothing that indicates that it wasn't much better with Tommy Rees. All of that being said, I have no idea what his feelings are on Jalen Milroe, positive or negative. It's possible that he could be really high on him. It's possible he could be really low on him. But what I do think is valuable to the Cleveland Browns is that Tommy Rees is going to have a pretty informed opinion about Jalen Milroe, who is the biggest mystery of this draft class at quarterback. So if the Browns want to go with Jalen, Tommy Rees is the guy who got the best passing numbers out of Jalen Milroe. You would be best set up. And if Tommy Rees is like, no, I like him, I think they were misusing him in Alabama last year, then you might be able to land something there with him. But if Tommy Rees is like, yeah, I had him as the offensive coordinator at Alabama, I'm not a big fan, then they're not going to go in that direction. So it'll be interesting to see how the Browns feel about Jalen Milroe, because they're probably going to have the most informed opinion about Jalen Milroe now, more so than any other coaching staff, because now their offensive coordinator is the same offensive coordinator that Jalen Milroe had his breakout year under. So that might change what the Browns are looking for. I do think this is true, right? Tommy Rees, what the Browns have looked at quarterback, all of this stuff to me points towards the Browns being more favorable to mobile quarterbacks than I think people assume. Like, if the Browns are looking for a veteran, they'll get Kirk Cousins, they'll go get Sam Darnold. But if the Browns are trying to develop a quarterback from scratch, I think mobility is a big part of what they look for, right? And it shows when they ever bring in these developmental guys, right? Kellen Mond was one of these developmental guys. DTR was one of these developmental guys. They wanted to go after Joe Milton in last year's draft, but didn't get the opportunity to select him. He's another guy who can move a little bit. I would not underestimate that when it comes to the Browns and what they're looking for to add to the quarterback position. But all in all, my thoughts on the Tommy Rees hire, it was expected. It makes sense with the direction that the Cleveland Browns are going. He fits what the Browns are looking for. The question with Tommy Rees is he going to be able to add new stuff to this offense? And really the question with the Browns offensive staff is this investment that they have made in bringing up college coaches going to pay off with them getting ahead of the curve offensively? Because the Browns have felt like they have been behind the curve. I think it's the biggest criticism of Kevin Stefanski that is valid, is that he does not seem to be able to find that curve and be ahead of it. He does not seem like he's one of those guys who can get ahead of the curve. Now, once he runs something and he knows it well, he can run it very well and teach it very effectively. And I think that's what makes him a good offensive coordinator. But getting ahead of the curve has been a struggle for him. It was a struggle with Alex Van Pelt. It was a struggle with Ken Dorsey. I think they've made this investment in getting younger coaches who have experience in what college football is doing to kind of get more experimental with the base offense that they're offering. So this is another step in that direction. We'll see if it pays off, right? You're sacrificing a lot of experience when you do this and you go this direction. You're sacrificing, a lot of like established knowledge when you do this. So there's pros to it, there's cons to it, but this is what it looks like the Browns are doing. They're trying to get ahead of the curve here. They're trying to make sure that their offense stays ahead of the curve and is ahead of the curve by going after younger prospects or college guys at these coaches' positions. We'll see if it pays off. Tommy Rees comes highly recommended, so that's a good thing from some very big names. So we'll see. Y'all let me know what you guys think of this hire in the comment section down below. Everybody have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.